The jungle was alive with strange sounds, cries of unknown creatures, and the rustle of tall leaves that seemed taller than houses. A lone human walked slowly through the wild path, his boots sinking into the soft ground, sweat rolling down his face. He was far from home, lost on a planet that no map had fully drawn. But he carried on, searching for food and water. The air was heavy, hot, and filled with the smell of plants he had never known, some glowing faintly in the dim light. Every step felt like danger, and every sound made him grip the small blade tied to his belt. Suddenly, the forest went silent. No birds, no insects, no rustling, nothing. The silence was heavy, pressing against his chest like a warning. He turned his head slowly, his eyes scanning the shadows, but saw nothing. Then, without a sound, a massive predator leaped from the darkness, its teeth flashing like knives. He froze, his body unable to move. The creature was faster than his thoughts. Its claws stretched out, ready to rip into him. In that instant, he thought his journey had ended. But before the beast could strike, another figure appeared, leaping between him and death. It was not human. It was small, thin, yet fierce. An alien female with strange markings on her skin and bright eyes that glowed like fire. She collided with the predator, her body pushing against its massive weight. A sharp cry left her throat, but she did not fall. The human stumbled backward, shocked, his blade still in its sheath, unable to believe what he was seeing. The alien girl dug her hands into the predator's hide, her claws slashing across its face. The beast roared, shaking its head. Throwing her against a tree, she fell hard, her body trembling, but she pushed herself up again without hesitation. The predator lunged once more, but she stood in its path, blocking the way. Her thin frame looked fragile compared to the monster's bulk. But she did not move. She hissed, her voice sharp like broken glass, warning the beast to stay back. For a moment, the predator paused, confused by her fearless stance. The human's heart pounded, sweat dripping down his brow. He knew she could not win, not alone, not like this. His hand finally reached for the blade. Pulling it free, he stepped closer, his fear burning into courage, because if she could risk herself for him, then he could not let her fight alone. Together, they faced the creature, human and alien side by side. The predator struck again, its teeth snapping like steel traps. The girl darted forward, fast as lightning. Cutting across its throat with her claws, the human slashed with his blade. Striking at its leg, the beast howled, stumbling, its blood dark and thick, spraying across the ground. Still, it did not stop. Its eyes locked on the human-like prey. It refused to lose. The alien girl roared, her small body shaking, and she leaped onto the beast's back. She bit down hard on its neck. Refusing to let go, the creature thrashed, slamming her into trees, clawing at her sides, but she held on. The human saw his chance and drove the blade deep into the predator's chest. The roar that followed shook the jungle, then faded into silence. The predator collapsed, its body twitching, then finally still. The girl slid off its back, falling to her knees, her body covered in scratches and blood. She was breathing hard, her bright eyes dimming with pain. The human rushed to her side, kneeling, unsure what to do. "Why did you save me?" he whispered, his voice shaking. Her lips trembled, but she did not answer. Instead, she leaned against him, her body weak, her breath shallow. He felt her shaking, not from fear, but from exhaustion. Her small hands clutched his arm tightly, as if she feared he would vanish if she let go. For a moment, he simply held her, his heart heavy with confusion. Why would a stranger protect him without hesitation? Why risk her life for someone she had never met? The questions burned inside him, but the answers did not come. The jungle noises slowly returned, distant cries and whispers. as if nothing had happened, but for him, everything had changed. The human looked at the alien girl, fragile yet fierce. Her blood stained the ground, her breath uneven, but her eyes still burned with fire. She had saved him without thought, without reason, and now he was bound to her, whether he wanted to be or not. The bond of life saved and life owed had been forged in that sudden attack, and deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. The human's hands were trembling as he tried to lift the alien girl. Her body was light, too light, as if she had been starving for days. Her skin was marked with deep scratches, and faint blue blood ran from her wounds, glowing softly in the dark. She leaned against him, her eyes half closed, yet she did not push him away. Instead, she let him carry her, as if trusting him with her life. He walked through the thick jungle, every step heavy, every shadow filled with fear that another predator might strike, but his thoughts were not on the beasts. They were on her, the girl who had saved him without a thought. Why? Why would she protect him? She could have escaped. She could have let the monster kill him. Yet she had chosen to fight, and now she was bleeding because of that choice. Finally, he found a small cave, hidden behind roots and stone. He pushed aside the hanging vines and carried her inside. The cave was damp but safe. At least for now. He laid her down gently, his jacket under her head, and looked at her wounds. They were bad, but not fatal. At least he hoped so. The girl's chest rose and fell quickly. Her breathing sharp, her bright eyes blinked open, focusing on him. She said something in her own language. The words soft and broken. He did not understand, but the tone was clear. She was telling him not to leave. The human knelt beside her, pulling a small kit from his pack. He had only a little medicine made for humans, not aliens. But he could not do nothing. He cleaned her wounds with shaking hands, wrapping cloth around her arms, and sighed. She flinched, gasping, but did not push him away. Instead, she whispered again, her voice weak, almost a whimper, "Duty. Protect." She said slowly, as if learning his tongue. He froze, his eyes locking on hers. Did she mean it was her duty to protect him? But why? He was no one important, just a traveler, lost and far from home. Her words made no sense. Yet the way she held his arm told him she believed them with all her heart. Hours passed, the jungle night filling the air with distant cries. He kept the fire small, just enough to keep the cold away. The girl lay close, her body trembling now and then. He watched her carefully, afraid she might stop breathing, but slowly she began to relax, her whimpers fading into soft sighs. When morning came, she was still there, alive, her eyes opening to the weak sunlight that slipped into the cave. She looked at him, studied him, and then lowered her head shyly. Her lips moved, and in a fragile voice she spoke again. "Protect." "You," she whispered, her accent sharp, but her meaning clear. The human's chest tightened, his heart heavy with questions he could not answer. Why him? Why risk herself for him? And more than that, why did she sound almost afraid that he would not accept it? The girl tried to sit up, wincing in pain, but he gently held her down. "Rest," he said firmly, his voice low. She blinked at him, her bright eyes widening, as if no one had ever spoken to her like that before. For a long moment she simply stared at him, then slowly nodded. Still, she did not let go of his arm. Her small fingers gripped him tightly, as if needing his presence to survive. It was strange. She was the one who had saved him. Yet now she clung to him as if he were her protector. The bond between them grew silently, not with words, but with actions, a bond made fragile by fear, yet strong because of trust. Later that day, as the jungle roared outside, she stirred again. Her head lowered, her voice soft, almost pleading reward. She whispered, though the words sounded heavy on her tongue. He frowned, confused, not sure what she meant. She repeated it, her tone almost desperate. Reward. For protect, the human's mind raced, trying to understand, did her people believe in payment for saving lives? Or was this something deeper, a tradition, a ritual? The way she trembled, the way her eyes avoided his, told him this was not about greed. It was about something else, something he did not yet understand. He wanted to ask more, but her body was still weak, her eyes fluttered, her breathing slowing. And soon she drifted back into sleep. The human sat there in silence, staring at the fire. The mystery of the girl grew heavier in his mind. Why did she call it her duty? Why did she ask for a reward? As the night fell once more, he realized something important. He was no longer alone in this jungle. She was with him now, bound by her choice to protect him, and by his choice to save her. But fragile as the bond was, he knew it would soon be tested again. The jungle was not done with them, and neither were the shadows watching from afar. And though he did not yet know it, the girl's request for a reward would soon change everything. The fire burned low in the cave, giving just enough light to push back the darkness. The human sat against the stone wall, his eyes half open from exhaustion, but he refused to sleep. Every sound in the jungle outside reminded him of the danger. Every shadow seemed ready to strike, yet the real weight in his chest came from the girl lying close to him. The strange alien who had protected him without fear. Her breathing was steady now, her wounds slowly healing under the cloth he had wrapped. She stirred, her glowing eyes opening, reflecting the dim firelight. For a long moment she only watched him, silent, her gaze sharp but fragile. Then, as if gathering courage, she whispered a word that made his heart skip. "Reward," she said again, her voice trembling, almost a whimper. The human frowned, not understanding. "What do you mean?" he asked gently. Her small frame shook, her head lowering as if she were ashamed. "Protect me, protect you," she whispered, her accent broken. "Now." Reward. The human felt a cold confusion wash over him. She had risked her life for him, fought the predator with everything she had, and now she was asking for something. But what? He searched her face, but her eyes avoided his, too shy too scared to meet them. He thought at first she wanted food, water, or shelter. He reached into his pack and pulled out the last of his dried rations, placing them near her, but she shook her head softly, pushing it back toward him. "No, not food," she said, her voice fragile. "Not this." His mind raced, trying to understand. Her hands moved slightly, brushing the ground, almost like an animal pawing at the earth. Her body leaned closer, her shoulders curling in as she whimpered. Again, reward. Grooming. The word struck him like thunder, leaving him frozen. Grooming. He repeated, unsure if he had even heard correctly. The alien girl nodded quickly, her head still lowered, as if afraid of rejection. Her body trembled, her voice rising barely above a whisper. "Yes. Grooming. My kind. Need it." The human's heart pounded. He had traveled across stars, seen countless worlds, but never had he heard something like this. She was asking not for food, not for water, not even for safety. She was asking for a simple, strange act of closeness. He hesitated, staring at her small form. Her skin was marked with faint lines, glowing faintly where her wounds had healed. Her tendrils thin. Hair-like strands that grew from her head were tangled and dirty from the fight. Was that what she meant? Did her people bond through grooming, like animals that showed trust by cleaning each other? The girl shifted nervously, her hands clutched together, her body leaning forward as if begging. She whimpered softly again. "Please, you groom me." Her voice cracked at the end, fragile, desperate, filled with a need he did not understand. The human felt the weight of choice pressing down on him. If he refused, would she feel rejected? Would she regret saving him? If he agreed, What would it mean? Would it bind them in some alien tradition he could not escape? His mind raced, but his heart softened as he looked at her, trembling, wounded. Yet still brave enough to ask. Slowly, he reached out, his hand hovering near her head. She froze, her body stiffening. Waiting then, as his fingers brushed gently. Against her tangled tendrils, she let out a sharp gasp. But it was not pain, it was relief. A sound so soft and pure, it made his chest ache. He ran his fingers carefully through the strands, pulling dirt and leaves away. Her body trembled. But not from fear. Instead, she leaned closer, her eyes closing. The whimpers came again, softer now. Like the purr of a small creature finding comfort. It was strange, unreal, but it felt right. For the first time since he had landed on this dangerous world, the human felt a fragile peace, not from safety, but from connection. The girl rested, her head lightly against his arm, her body relaxing as if a great weight had been lifted. She whispered softly, her words broken, but clear, "Now bond." "You and me," his breath caught in his throat. Was this what she had meant from the beginning? Her people must see grooming not as a simple act, but as a sign of trust, of belonging. She had saved him without thought. But now she wanted to be sure he was hers and she was his. The human continued, his fingers working slowly, gently. Her glowing eyes opened for a moment, watching him, full of something he could not name. Then she closed them again, sighing. Softly, clinging to him as if afraid he might stop. Her whimpers faded into quiet, her breathing steady, peaceful for the first time. But deep inside his chest, questions still burned. What did this bond mean? Was it just comfort, or was it something far greater? Would this act tie their fates together, in ways he could not yet understand? Outside the cave, the jungle roared again, predators hunting, shadows moving, but inside, there was silence, broken. Only by the girl's soft breaths, the human sat there, still grooming her. His mind heavy with confusion, his heart heavy with emotion. He did not know where this bond would lead, but he knew one thing. Life had changed forever, and there was no turning back. The human's hand slowed as he brushed through her tangled strands. The alien girl leaned against him, her eyes closed, her chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. Her small body trembled each time his fingers moved, but it was not fear, it was relief. Every whimper that escaped her lips was soft, fragile, and strangely innocent. He had never seen anything like it. He had traveled across space, met many species, learned their customs. But this was different. This was not ritual, not trade, not survival. It was something deeper, something personal. She had begged him for this, not food, not water, not safety, but grooming. The fire crackled weakly in the corner of the cave, casting faint light across her glowing marks. Her alien skin shimmered under the touch of the flames, and he saw how delicate she truly was. She had fought a predator twice her size, yet now, she looked fragile, like she might break at the slightest rejection. Her whimpers grew quieter, her body pressing closer against him, and finally, she whispered, "My people. Bond this way," her voice shaky but clear. "Protect. And be protected. Reward is..." Touch, the human froze, his hand pausing in her strands. So this was not just comfort, it was culture, maybe even instinct. She whined softly when his hand stopped. So he resumed, gently untangling the knots. She sighed, almost melting into him. Her glowing eyes opening slightly. "You human. Do not know," she said in her broken words, "but for me, this is everything." Her words struck him like a blade. He realized this was no small thing to her, no playful act. To her, this was sacred. The human's chest grew heavy, he thought. back to the way she had thrown herself between him and the beast. Risking her life without hesitation. Was it all because of this? Because of her belief that protection and grooming tied to lives together. She had called it bond, and now he understood she had chosen him, whether he was ready or not. He spoke softly. Why me? The alien girl's glowing eyes widened, and she looked away, her tendrils trembling under his hand. She did not answer at first, her lips pressed tight, her small fingers gripping his arm. Finally, she whispered, "Because you are human. And humans." Strong, the words confused him. He was not a soldier, not a warrior, only a wanderer lost on this world. But to her, maybe that did not matter. She had seen something in him, something that made her choose. The girl curled closer, her voice softer now. "My kind." Whimper. "When we want to stay," she admitted, "when we fear, you leave." Her cheeks flushed faintly, her glowing skin warming under the firelight. Her whimpers were not weakness. They were a plea, a call for him not to abandon her. The human's heart tightened. He had thought the whimpers were simple sounds, but now he realized they were her deepest truth. She was afraid, not of predators, not of pain, but of being left alone, and by grooming her, he was giving her the answer she needed, that he would not walk away. He brushed her tendrils again, slower this time, more careful. She shivered. But this time, she smiled faintly, her eyes closing in peace. The human felt strange, not just confusion, but warmth. He had been alone for so long, surviving from world to world. And now, here was someone clinging to him, someone who trusted him without question. As the night grew deeper, he asked softly, "Your people, where are they?" Her smile faded, her body tensed, and the whimpers returned. Louder this time. "Gone," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Taken, killed." "I alone." The words cut into him like knives. She had no one, no family, no tribe, no safety. And now she had chosen him to fill that emptiness. The human pulled her closer, his hand resting gently on her back. She trembled in his arms, but did not resist. Her whimpers softened again, fading into small sighs as she rested her head against his chest. In that moment, he understood her secret. Fully, she did not want food or water. She wanted connection, a bond strong enough to heal the wounds of being alone. The fire burned lower, shadows creeping across the walls of the cave. But inside, the air felt warmer, safer. The human whispered, "I will not leave you." Though he did not know if she understood, her whimpers stopped, her body went still. And then she whispered one last word before sleep claimed her. "Mine." The human sat there in silence, her body resting against him. He did not know what future awaited, what dangers would come. But one thing was certain, the bond was real, and it was stronger than he had ever imagined. And from this night forward, his life was no longer his alone. The jungle outside was restless, but inside the cave, there was calm. The alien girl slept with her head against the human's chest, her breath soft and steady, her tendrils still tangled between his fingers, as if afraid he would pull away in. The night, the human had not slept much, his mind turning over what she had said. Her secret, her whimpers, her need for grooming, all of it tied to a bond he barely understood. When morning came, the sunlight slipped through cracks in the cave, painting her glowing skin in a faint gold. She stirred, her eyes opening slowly, and when she saw him still beside her, she let out a soft sigh of relief. "Still here," she whispered, as if the simple fact was a gift she had not expected. The human gave a small nod, trying to smile, though inside he still carried confusion. He had not chosen this bond, but she had, and now it felt too fragile to break. She tried to sit up, wincing from the pain in her side, but he steadied her gently. Her bright eyes studied him for a long time before she leaned closer. "More grooming?" She asked shyly, her voice trembling with hope. The human hesitated, but then nodded, and as his fingers brushed through her strands again, she let out that soft whimper, the sound that melted his chest every time as the hours passed. Something shifted. She began to follow him closely, never more than a step away. When he moved to gather water, she trailed behind him, silent but watchful. When he bent to pick fruit from alien trees, she stood guard, her sharp claws ready. And when he sat to rest, she pressed herself close, her glowing eyes watching the world with fierce focus. At first, it felt strange to him. He was not used to anyone staying so close, not used to someone treating him as if his life mattered more than theirs. But slowly, he began to accept it. And more than that, he began to feel something different inside. Something heavy but warm. One night, as they sat by the fire, he finally asked, "Why do you trust me?" The alien girl tilted her head, her tendrils swaying gently. "Because I chose," she said simply, her voice steady. "My people. When we protect, we give all. No take back." Her words struck him, the weight of them sinking deep. This bond was not casual, not temporary to her. It was for life. She leaned her head against his shoulder, her body relaxing in a way it never did when she was alone. Her whimpers returned, soft and steady, not from pain, but from comfort. The human realized something then. She did not just want protection, she wanted belonging. And as he brushed her tendrils gently, he felt the truth in his heart. He was beginning to want the same. But danger was never far. One evening, as they collected fruit near a stream, the jungle grew silent once again. The human froze, remembering the first attack, and the girl tensed, her claws sliding out with a faint scrape from the shadows. Eyes glowed, more than one pair, watching, circling. Predators, not one this time, but three. Moving closer with every step, the girl hissed, her small body moving in front of him again. The human grabbed his blade, his heart pounding. "No," he whispered. "We fight together." She glanced at him, her glowing eyes wide, as if his words meant more than the weapon in his hand. Then she nodded, and they stood side by side, facing the beasts. The predators lunged, their bodies fast and heavy. The human struck one across the leg, forcing it back. The girl leaped onto another, her claws slashing across its face. They moved together without words, his blade and her speed blending into one fight. The third predator circled, growling, but when it leaped, the human shoved it back with all his strength. The battle ended in heavy silence, their breaths ragged. Two predators lay dead. The third limped into the jungle, leaving a trail of blood. The human stood shaking, his blade dripping, and when he turned, he saw her watching him with wide, burning eyes. She let out a sharp whimper, but this time it was not fear. It was pride. "You protect me," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Now you protect me." The human wiped the blood from his face, his chest heavy. She was right. This time it had not been her alone. He had fought for her, risked for her, and that shifted something between them. It was no longer her protecting him, or him saving her. It was them together, one bond. Later that night, she pressed herself against him by the fire, trembling softly. He groomed her tendrils again, pulling away dirt and blood, his hands steady now, her eyes closed, her breath slow, her voice soft as she whispered, "Together. Always." The human said nothing, but his heart gave the answer, yes. Together, the bond was no longer fragile. It was growing stronger, and with every battle, every whimper, every touch, it became harder to imagine life without her. The human looked into the jungle shadows, knowing more danger waited, but now he was not afraid. Because she was his, and he was hers. The jungle was never quiet for long. Every night, new roars echoed through the trees. Every day, new shadows moved in the distance. But after the last battle, The human and the alien girl walked differently. They no longer moved like strangers thrown together by chance. They moved like one, step for step, eyes watching for danger together. She no longer hesitated to stand close, her hand brushing his arm as if to remind herself he was real. And when he reached to groom her tendrils, she no longer asked with words, she simply leaned against him. But the bond that grew between them also carried a weight, a price neither had spoken of yet, because, in the jungle, nothing came free, not even trust. On the third night after the fight with the predators, the human awoke to the sound of movement. Outside the cave, he reached for his blade quietly, his heart pounding. The alien girl stirred too, her glowing eyes opening at once, sharp and alert. Together they listened. The faint sound of steps, too heavy to be small animals, too many to be lone hunters. Then voices came, rough and guttural. Not beasts, people, or something close. The human crawled to the edge of the cave and peered through the vines. Shapes moved in the dark, tall and armed, their armor reflecting faint moonlight. Hunters, not animals, but intelligent. Carrying spears and blades carved from black stone, the girl hissed low, her tendrils stiff. Her body pressed against the wall. "They come," she whispered, her voice shaking. "They want me." The human turned sharply to her, his jaw tightening. "You? Why you?" Her eyes dropped, shame burning in their glow. "My kind. Rare now," she said softly. "Hunters. Take us, sell us, use us." The human's stomach twisted, anger boiling in his chest. She had not only been alone because of death, but because she was hunted, treated as prey. And now they had come for her, tracking her through the jungle. He tightened his grip on his blade, his voice low and fierce. "They won't take you." But the hunters were many, more than 10. Their voices rising as they drew closer. The human knew they could not fight them all, not directly. He pulled the girl close, whispering quickly, "We move, now." Together, they slipped from the back of the cave, pushing through roots and stone. The jungle swallowed them in darkness, but the hunters' calls echoed behind. They ran until the girl stumbled, her wounds aching. The human caught her before she fell, his breath ragged. She whimpered softly, clutching his arm, her voice shaking, "Leave me. They only want me. You safe if stop." He cut her off sharply, his eyes blazing. "I'm not leaving you. Ever." Her lips trembled, her glowing eyes wide, and a soft cry left her throat, not of fear, but of something deeper. The hunters' voices grew louder, closer. They had dogs, alien hounds with long snouts and glowing red eyes, sniffing through the undergrowth. The human pulled her behind a fallen tree, pressing her small frame against him. The hounds passed so close he could hear their growls, smell their foul breath. The girl buried her face against his chest, whimpering quietly, and he stroked her tendrils to keep her calm. But one hound turned, sniffing sharply, its red eyes locking onto them. It let out a shriek, and the hunters shouted, rushing forward. The human leaped up, his blade flashing in the dim light. He struck the hound before it reached them, its body collapsing at his feet. The girl screamed, not in fear, but in fury, leaping forward with her claws. The hunters clashed with them under the black canopy of the trees. The human fought like fire, every strike fueled by rage, every movement to keep her safe. The girl darted between shadows, her claws slashing her small frame, too fast to catch, but they were outnumbered, and slowly the hunters pressed closer. Circling them, one spear cut across the human's arm, blood spilling. Another struck his shoulder, forcing him to his knees. The girl cried out, throwing herself in front of him again. Her claws tore through one hunter's throat, but another slammed her to the ground. She whimpered, her glowing eyes wide with terror as rough hands grabbed her arms. The human roared, driving his blade into the earth to force himself up. Pain seared through his body, but he did not stop. He could not. He struck down one, then another, his vision blurring with blood and sweat. The hunters fell back for a moment, shocked at the fury of a single human. The girl crawled back to him, her body shaking, clutching his arm. "You hurt," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Please, stop." But he shook his head, pulling her close with his one good arm. "No, I can't stop, not while you need me." Her whimpers filled the night, louder than ever. They were not sounds of weakness. They were cries of desperation, cries of love in a language he was only beginning to understand. The human tightened his hold on her, standing even as his wounds bled freely. If they wanted her, they would have to kill him first. And in that moment, he realized the price of protection. It was not just pain, not just blood. It was giving everything. The hunters closed in again, their voices shouting, their weapons raised, but the human did not back away, and neither did the alien girl. They stood together, broken and bleeding, but unyielding, and as the night air filled with the clash of steel and claws, the jungle itself seemed to hold its breath, because in that moment, two lives were bound not by fear, but by a choice that could not be undone. The human's breath came in heavy bursts, each one burning his chest. Blood ran down his arm, dripping onto the jungle floor. The alien girl clung to him, her glowing eyes wide with fear and fire. Around them, the hunters circled, growling in their strange tongue, their weapons raised. High, the human tightened his grip on the blade, his body shaking but unbroken. He could feel the weight of the bond pressing down on him. This girl had risked everything for him, had chosen him without hesitation. Now it was his turn, his choice, and there was no going back. The hunters rushed in with a roar, their spears thrusting forward. The human raised his blade. Meeting the first strike with all his strength, sparks flew, the clash echoing through the night. The alien girl leaped beside him, her claws flashing, slashing across another's throat. Together, they fought as one, every move tied not by training, but by trust. But there were too many. The human stumbled. Another spear slicing across his side. Pain tore through him, his vision blurring, his knees almost giving way. The girl screamed, throwing herself in front of him again, taking the blow meant for his chest. Her cry echoed like thunder, and her body fell against him, trembling. "No?" The human roared, fury exploding inside him. He caught her in his arms, her glowing blood staining his hands. Her whimpers came weak and broken, but her eyes locked onto his. "Protect." "Always," she whispered, her lips trembling. "Bond." Forever, the words lit a fire in him stronger than any pain. He rose again, his blade shining with blood and sweat. The hunters pressed forward, but now he was no longer fighting to live. He was fighting to protect what had chosen him, what had trusted him. Each swing of his blade cut deeper, each strike fueled by rage and love. The jungle roared with the sound of battle, cries of hunters falling under his fury. At last, silence fell. The bodies of the hunters lay scattered across the ground, their weapons broken, their blood soaking the soil. The human stood swaying, his chest heaving, his blade dripping beside him. The alien girl lay weak, her glowing eyes half closed, her breath shallow. He dropped to his knees, pulling her close, his voice breaking. "Stay with me. Don't leave." Her small hand touched his face, trembling. "You fight." "For me," she whispered, her voice fading now. "I know." "Human mine." The human's chest tightened, his heart shattering at the sound of her fragile words. He stroked her tendrils gently, the way she had begged him to before. Her whimpers softened, no longer desperate but peaceful. The night grew quiet, the jungle watching in silence. He held her close, every heartbeat pounding like a promise. "I will protect you," he whispered fiercely. "Not because of duty, not because of bond, but because I choose you too." Her glowing eyes widened faintly, then softened, tears shimmering in their light. She whimpered one last time, a sound filled with trust, before resting her head against his chest. Dawn came slowly, painting the trees with pale light. The human sat there still, holding her, his wounds burning, but his spirit unbroken. The hunters were gone, the predators silent. But the bond between them was alive. She stirred at last, her breath steadier, her voice weak but warm. "You protect me. Now I protect you." Always the human smiled faintly, exhaustion weighing on him, but inside he felt something stronger than pain, stronger than fear. This girl was no longer a stranger, no longer just a protector. She was his, and he was hers, bound not by tradition alone, but by choice. The final choice to live for each other, to fight for each other, no matter what came. As the jungle woke around them, they rose slowly, side by side. The human leaned on his blade. The girl leaned on him. Together, they walked into the new day, leaving behind blood and shadows. And though the future was unknown, they carried it with courage, for they were no longer alone, no longer fragile, but bound by a bond that nothing could break.